Hey everyone, it's me, Arthur Kade, and on today's episode, we will be chatting with some of music's greatest legends who have forever changed the industry, as well as some of today's hottest artists who are building their own legacies. I hope you're ready to go behind the velvet rope. First, let's honor the musical pioneers. 35 years ago, John Lennon was taken before his time. But the music and activism that he left behind has inspired and will inspire generations to come. For his would-be 75th birthday, AMC put on an all-star concert to honor his legacy. Another musical legend, Pete Townshend of The Who, was honored by the Music Cares MAP Fund, an organization helping artists struggling with addiction. Let's take a look at both events.
John was here.
He would be happy with it.
He would be happy.
You and so many great artists. Talk to me about the legacy of what John Lennon brought to the game of music.
I think John, more than any other artist, was fearless about his message, and when it was very unpopular, he really made some stances that were pretty controversial, particularly about the Vietnam War and just peace in general, and he really made himself his artistic statement. You know, he and Yoko both. They kind of transcended music and became the message, and I don't see many artists really doing that anymore, and he's sort of the template for me.
What's incredible about him is not just the music, but the activism. Talk to me about, growing up during that era, what John Lennon meant as an activist as well.
Well, the interesting thing about John was that he continued past, the Vietnam War and continued to, be just such a force for peace all over the world. The war was kind of starting to taper off, and still he was out there saying, we have to take a more active stance in terms of our world and trying to love each other. And all these messages are really simple. Imagine, that's just like a simple thing, but he just had a way of turning it into a great jewel,
What did he mean for you and for music?
Well, for me, John Lennon means a lot. It's my whole life I've been listening to his voice, his lyrics, since he was in the Beatles and also his solo career. And after all, I think the power message he has about peace, about ending war, about using art as a powerful weapon of peace is something that touched my heart, and I feel so identified till these days.
As a rock and roll guy, the Beatles, John, they were the beginning of rock and roll. What did they bring in terms of pioneering to the game that has influenced artists like you?
Well, from lyrics to sonics, but also the one thing that John Lennon specifically injected into the mix was they started out as basically a boy band, and then he became a politically conscious person and interwove that with his music to make something that was a lot deeper.
When you look at what he was able to do as a musician, you're a guy who does it all. What did he do in terms of pioneering the art?
Well, in terms of pioneering an art, I think he made it palatable for pop music to have a message. And I think Michael Jackson took that to heart when he would make songs like They Don't Care About Us or It Doesn't Matter If You're Black or White, where he'd put social messages within pop music. I think that's what he really was great in doing.
John Lennon was a man who somehow had impeccable bullseye accuracy and great songwriting. He was a poet and a political activist, and really put his thoughts into action, even when it wasn't popular. So even though he only lived 40 years on this earth, everything he did sort of resonated and reached way beyond his time.
Talk to me about John Lennon and his legacy to music.
Listen, John Lennon's a hero of mine. John Lennon is my hero and my friend.
such an incredible year for you. Obviously, The Who turning 50, Quadrophilic. I mean, so much great stuff. I've read that you're doing a novel. Talk to me about when you look at the legacy of what this band was able to accomplish. Looking back and reflecting, what goes through your mind?
Well, I'm 70 years old and I've got Rachel. That's one good thing.
That's a
It's a kind of maybe a bit of a rock star thing. Although Rachel, as you know, works with me as a composer and arranger. I think maybe the thing is that maybe the reason why we've been able to come back to this 50th year with such vigor is that we took nearly 10 years out. When Keith died, we tried to keep going for a while, and then we decided we couldn't. Well, I decided we couldn't. So we actually had. Really, it's a sort of a 38th anniversary. But, and in that time off, I did all kinds of other things. I know what the value of other things is as well. And so, I'm not quite so kind of biblical about the rock industry as some artists are. I don't mind spending time off the road. I'm not obsessed by being on the road. But this year, it's just been delightful, really. I think mainly because Roger and I have found a way to coexist, which is truly based on give and take and friendship and respect.
This band, The Who, they did okay over 50 years.
Yeah,
right?
they sort of got there. No, they're unique, very unique. And I was saying to somebody earlier that for me, when I joined them, I joined them first in December 1970, and they taught me about being unconditionally generous to the less fortunate. We started doing charity stuff from the early 70s. We formed our own charity. We did many, many shows, and we fed it out to people on a very, non-public level. And for me, it was an education.
We're honoring a pretty special dude here tonight, Mr. Pete Townsend, and Bruce Springsteen's performing. You know a little bit about Bruce. Talk to me about the legacy of Pete Townsend.
Pete Townsend, one of the most important people in my life, and I think, we both grew up with the British invasion being extremely influential. For somebody in a band, it was the first time we saw bands. We didn't, before them, before the Beatles, there was individuals and singing groups and instrumental groups, but there was, no real bands playing and singing and eventually writing their own stuff. So it was a very new thing that got me wanting to do it.
When I was a kid, 1969, The Who were my favorite band, and for good reason. And I saw the original lineup a number of times back then, and I never got over it, and they have continued to get better and better, and they're just two of the classiest gentlemen, Kerbishley and Townsend, in rock and roll. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes. Bill Kerbishley, fantastic person. I've known him. It's one of the few managers I've known practically my whole of my career, and I would go to him for help. When I had to think about what's I going to do in my next step, I would go and talk to Bill Kerbishley, and that's how great he was. That's how helpful people like Pete Townsend were to people like me in the music business. They really, really went out of their way to help you, to be there for you, and that's fantastic when you're starting out. Somebody as great as that, giving a damn, it's huge.
Who are you most excited to see? I mean, we got Springsteen here. I mean, The Who. Do you sit back as a fan and say, I can't wait to watch this?
Absolutely. I mean, the musicians that are playing here tonight, The Who, Bruce is here, Joan Jett, Billy Idol, and it's a great New York night. But to see Bruce and The Who play together, that's going to be pretty fun.
What a night here. I mean, rock royalty, Pete Townsend, Billy Idol next to you.
Yes, I know. And here I am in the middle. But I mean, it is wild, but I used to be on MTV, so I kind of almost feel like it's like a flashback to me.
All right, now it's time to check in with some of today's hottest young artists who are dominating the charts with their R&B, rock, and even a cappella sounds. When you look at the new album, Everything Is For, talk to me about the inspiration behind the album. What did you want to accomplish with it?
I'm somebody who loves to experiment, so I played around with a bunch of different sounds, man, and I think the album is rooted in my reality, and I think people will find themselves in my stories because, we're human. We all go through the same things, man.
So you think you can dance, being a judge. It's great to see you making this transition to TV. Talk to me about that transition and being a judge on one of the hottest shows on TV.
Yeah, you know what? It's a format that's been working for 11 seasons, and it's great to be a part of a winning franchise, of course. It's been just what I needed, you know what I'm saying? I feel like my life was a little one-dimensional, with the music and, kind of staying on that go path. But this offers me like a little difference, you know what I'm saying? It's my little piece of joy that I could, go in and offer some of my, the information that I've garnered over the years to these contestants.
You've had a change in your life. Talk to me about the new direction of your life, being single. Are you having fun? What's going on?
Man, I'm having the time of my life, man. I'm getting turned, man. You see all these beautiful ladies in this audience, man.
How has it changed with your music and just inspiring your art?
Definitely topic-wise. I mean, you'll notice a change in what I'm actually talking about. You'll hear some stories about what it was like before, and then you'll hear what it was like towards the end, rather, and then new freshness. You know what I'm saying? Meeting a special person and saying, "Try me." You know what I'm saying? I might be the man of your dreams, baby. You know what I'm saying? Just try me. A song with J-Lo, song like "Broke" talks about more money, more problems. Watching things kind of shatter around you when you're on this rise. More and more and more I've noticed things change around me, and yeah, I kind of explain that in that song.
6 years,
Yeah.
new album out. Congratulations.
Thank
Talk to me
you.
about putting the new album together. It's got to be such a thrill.
Well, I mean, it's been a while. It took a while to figure out like exactly where I wanted to go and what sound I wanted to. But once I found it, I just kind of went from there. I was just like, okay, I got it. And that was around 2011 when I started working on Sparkle, Salam Remy. I met him and he was scoring the film, and it kind of grew from there. He heard something in my voice that he was like, I don't think anybody's heard this yet. And he pulled it. He was like, come on, Jordan, you can do it. I've always loved the sound that I've done, but to be able to sing it and actually, put out a full body of work, I'm just very excited.
You've got a little bit of everything on this, and I just read you're thinking about doing country. I mean, there's so much cool stuff happening. Talk to me about when you're putting this down, you get great cameos from great singers involved. This is, from an artistic venture standpoint, just a creative masterpiece. Talk to me about it.
Thank you. Well, I guess I would kind of take it back to when I was on American Idol during my seasons and the ones prior. We did different genres every week. So everybody kind of knows me being able to do everything. But I grew up listening to such a broad taste or broad range of genres like country, pop, R&B, hip hop, rap. I've listened to it all and I love it all. Country I was doing right before I even did American Idol. So eventually I would love to do a country album. So we'll see. The timing's got to be right. But I was actually asked for the first time on this record, Jordan, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to say? What do you want it to sound like? And to be able to go into the studio with that kind of freedom was awesome because it wasn't about the genre. It wasn't about how fast it was. It wasn't about anything. It was just go in and create. And I feel like everything really just blended together. So there's a little bit of everything because I'm a little bit of everything.
You got some great cameos. I mentioned them before.
Yeah.
How do you get people to get on your album?
That is a great question.
Phone calls, lots of phone calls.
It's actually really crazy because, it being so long since I put out an album, it was kind of like, who's going to want to be on an album when it's been so long that I've been gone, So a lot of them, I was very excited. It was really encouraging to see that the people that I reached out to really wanted to be a part of my project as well. And that was amazing for me. I was like, okay, this is awesome. But a few of them was a phone call. A few of them was, it just so happened that we were on the same radio shows this summer. And that was what happened with Shaggy. We kind of kept crossing paths and then we were like, let's do something. And it came in, I think, a week before we had to turn in the album. And he did an amazing job. Jado is actually on my label as well. So we're label mates. I haven't even met him yet, but he did a great verse on 1000. 2 Chainz I was a fan of. Elijah Blake I was a fan of. B.A.B. I was a fan of. So just to be able to ask and they were like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So it was great.
You break into the scene, you're 13 years old. You become this teen icon, millions of fans, a lot of synth, electro sound. And now I'm listening to you and you have this kind of rock, folk, really cool sound. Talk to me about that change in direction and where you want your music to evolve to.
Yeah, I mean, like the weird thing about my childhood experience in the music industry was like the albums. Like I had 2 albums, and it was this weird like mixture of like some of the songs were like, you know, ones that I'd written with all these like people that wanted a certain thing, and then like some of the songs were like even similar to what I'm doing now. It's like, so it was just this weird thing, and the ones obviously that they pushed as like singles were the other ones, you know, and you know, that having learnt a lot, you know, it's such an experimental period of your life, you know, that like sort of 13 or like 18, you learn so much about yourself, you change a lot, like, and fortunately and unfortunately I had to do that in front of a lot of people. Unfortunately, never having had like an actual like hit record or whatever as a youngster, it was like, now it's just refreshing to be able to like reverse all that, and you know, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about the world, you know, sort of growing up being a sponge and like traveling all the time, and seeing a lot of places, and you know, you gain this certain knowledge that, you know, gave me the courage to say thank you, but I have to go now, you know, and stay true to myself, and you know, usually you just end up coming back around to like your roots and like where you started, and that's, you know, that's sort of what happened to me. So
when you break out at 13 years old, what is that like at such a young age? I'm 36 years old, and I can't even begin to imagine my mindset at 13 years old, even 18 years old. It's crazy.
You're impressionable, so naive, and it's like you go and coming like New York City, being a small town kid back home just in Australia, like I hadn't seen anything else. Like I'd barely been on an airplane at all, and just like coming over here and meeting with all these people, and they're like, do this and that, we want you to do this, and I'm like, okay, like they'll just go along for the ride for a while, and then you end up sort of getting a little wiser, you know, and realizing, and then being like, this is not where I started, this is not what I want to be doing, and then you end up just having to kind of come back around, and I get a nice fresh start now, and you know, the album's coming out, and it's called Free, you know, it's a, you know, symbolic for the stage of my life that I'm in now, everything that's happening, symbolic for, you know, the independence and the freedom that I now have and received, and the way that I like to do things and run my businesses, and you know, my artistry is just very natural and organically, and that's the way it's happening now, and I'm so happy. Like I didn't realize how frustrated I was before, just feeling so contained, and now it's like I just feel like it all came, I felt like a different person than what people knew I was, and now it's just like coming back together again.
We're atop the Empire State Building. How cool is it to be up here and having this rotating light scheme happening?
I mean, it's so cool. I've known about this building my whole life, but I've never been here before, and I don't think any of us have. And it's just it's really cool to be here right at the top with the amazing view, and it's pretty surreal.
You guys have a #1 album, had a #1 album. How ridiculous is that? I mean, I remember when you just won the sing-off. Now #1 albums, how cool.
It's so cool. I mean, we've been working at this for such a long time, and to know that our original music can garner #1 is seriously just a testament to the fans. So we're so thankful for them, and we love them so much.
Every time you guys do a mix-up of somebody else's songs, like Beyonce, I always love it, because
oh, thank you.
What's been the coolest artist reaction that you've gotten? Because it feels like everybody's reacted.
Probably Beyonce,
Beyonce
right?
was really cool.
I already named it.
Yeah.
Loser. What a loser.
I think you probably named it, yeah.
So cool.
How cool was that? When you get someone like Beyonce, arguably the biggest star in the world, reacting to your music, what does that mean?
It was like, oh my gosh, she saw us.
Yeah.
She knows I exist. It was really cool.
When you look around, and a cappella is an art form that we don't think of as pop superstardom, and you guys are bringing it to the forefront. What's been the reaction? Just seeing you in Pitch Perfect 2, obviously. What's been the reaction from other artists, just seeing what you're now pioneering with what you're doing?
I think people really appreciate it. I think that, I mean, everyone loves singing, and that's all we do. So I think people are really catching on and really appreciate what we do.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of other artists are like, y'all are doing something different. That's cool. Do your thing. You know what I mean? It's a very supportive industry.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
I mean, we were just at the American Music Awards, and to have people like Justin Bieber or One Direction or Meghan Trainor just come up to us and say, like, we love your stuff, or like 5 Seconds of Summer, they came up and said, hey, we love your documentary. It's cool to get these names say, hey, we love what you're doing, and it's so different. So we're just thankful, and we know that, you know, we're on the right path to something.
Multi-platinum rock band Lifehouse has already sold more than 15 million albums, and this year they released Out of the Wasteland, their first record as an independent artist. We sat down with the band to talk about their sound and process. How hard is it to put a new record together? And what I mean by that, I mean, you've got to understand, I have zero musical ability. So to actually sit and figure out how to do this stuff is crazy to me. For you guys, is it a pretty easy creative process, or is it hard?
I feel like it's getting harder as we kind of carry on. You know, we've been together for 15, 16 years. In the beginning, everything is so fresh. Everything that you write is new. You know, you only have a handful of songs.
It's like having a girlfriend.
Yeah, after 7 records, it gets a little tricky. You know, you have to go back in. You don't want to say the same things and repeat yourself. You know, and we never wanted to be one of those bands that just does the same song over and over. So the level of accountability that you have to hold yourself to in the studio gets higher, you know, and so you have to really focus and try to push yourself to experiment and try different things.
Having been together for that long, is it difficult in terms of, because you've had success, continuing to match that success? Is there pressure involved with that for you guys, or do you look at it and say, hey, things are great and they're going to continue to be great? What's the outlook?
I don't think we're that type of band that wants to jump on any sort of bandwagon or like stay relevant just for the sake of staying relevant. We've been true to our craft, and we keep trying to raise the bar line of each record for ourselves and for our fans. And but as far as like pressures, we've tried to step away from the pressures, especially with this new record, because we're doing it independently. It's called Out of the Wasteland. It's kind of a rebirth for us. So you know, we definitely try not to chase. We just, you know, do what we do for ourselves.
Going indie, talk to me about that, because it seems like every artist that I'm talking to these days is getting away from labels and going indie. What's that been like for you guys?
It's a lot more work, you know. It's like 3 times the workload because you don't have that big machine behind you, but it's also really gratifying because you're working for yourself. You know what I mean? You're putting the work in, but you're doing it to promote something that is a pure artistic expression. You know, because it takes the pressure to turn in 5 or 6 singles on an album. You can really focus in on making an album that has dimension and different textures. It's not about just like putting 6 hits on an album. And so to put the time in to make an album that you want to make, and then to work really hard to promote it, is actually kind of gratifying, even though it's a lot more work.
Roger Waters' documentary, Roger Waters The Wall, details how Pink Floyd's most famous album was made. We went to the premiere in New York, where we spoke to the band and the filmmakers. I've seen The Wall live. I'm beyond excited to see this documentary, and you wore all hats with this. You wrote, directed, you starred. Talk to me about showing your concert through film to the world.
I don't know what to say. I am struck dumb. I mean, we did a concert, decided to film it, shot some road movie to go with it. I hope it's moving. I hope people enjoy watching it. I hope it makes people think a little bit about this and that.
On so many levels, your music has united generations. Do you hope that this film at some level introduces Pink Floyd to a new generation, a younger generation as well?
Well, it does. I mean, because the concerts did. I think the demographics of my audience, we played this in, I think we did 229 shows, something like that, over 3 years, all over the world. And the average age of the audience is 25 or something like that,
insane.
Which is great. And so I'm very happy that we've reached all those, new young people.
With this movie, I mean, the visual part as insane, but there's also a story to be told here. Talk to me about really balancing those two acts with this movie.
Well, we felt like it was really important to include that in there, especially for Roger. I mean, he's done some concert movies before. Not that I wouldn't say that it would be boring to him, but to really make it charged with interest, it needed to have that extra element. It needed to have that, and the story that's in there is so about what the kernel of the record is, for that why he wrote the record in 1980. This relationship that he never had with his father. I mean, that's what it's about. So for it to be the closing of the film, it just made sense.
You've known this guy, Roger Waters, for a long time. To see The Wall and what you guys have been able to do, incredible stuff. Talk to me about this legacy that's been created.
Well, I mean, I think this is really a continuation of something Roger's been doing for a long time now. I mean, whether the original Wall recording was made over 30 years ago now, I think. And it's sort of remarkable because it's the message is still fresh and the reinterpretation is still, I think, really strong.
Sting, one iconic rocker supporting another iconic rocker. What makes Roger Waters one of the greatest?
You know, he's a British bass player like me, and he has a vision, and I respect that, and I like him very much, and I'm really excited about seeing this movie, so I'm wishing him all the best.
Man, Pink Floyd is still one of the best concerts I've ever seen. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you'll join us again behind the Velvet Rope.